Hey you guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Stephanie. I am a life and relationship coach. Let's get into this week's topic because I know this one is gonna hit the heart this week, okay? So let's talk about narcissistic exes. Let's talk about this story that sometimes we create in our minds that they are just so incredibly happy. So let's get into this right now. So when you are dealing with someone who's narcissistic and the relationship has ended, especially if it's ended in a hurtful way, right? Betrayal, cheating, lying, things like that, you're going to be angry. You're going to be upset. You're not going to want this person to probably be happy because your ego is really bruised from what they actually did to you. So maybe they hurt you and you don't want to see them happy. Maybe you want them to suffer. Maybe you want to have revenge on them and make them pay for what it is that they did to you. Maybe you actually don't even care about them whatsoever until they get into a relationship because maybe you're not in a relationship, or maybe you are, but the fact that they get into a relationship and they appear to be really, really happy just starts to kind of bug you or get under your skin a little bit. So they get into this relationship and you see through social media or possibly mutual friends or whatever that looks like, that they appear to be happy. And not only do they appear to be happy, but they actually appear to be the person that you once saw or you once had in your relationship, or even possibly a better version of that person. So in the beginning phases of your relationship, you witnessed the same thing. You witnessed this great person that seems so happy and so incredibly into you. And then at some point in the relationship, they just kind of changed. And a lot of the times, if you're dealing with someone who legit has MPD, it's gonna be a really quick change. Sometimes moving in can jolt it. Sometimes you breaking up with them and then going back, maybe that jolts it. Maybe having children, jolts it, or getting married or something like that. Maybe all of a sudden they switch jobs and now they're making a ton of money, and that kind of jolts all of a sudden this shift in their character, even though they already had the same character. They were just essentially playing a character with you. But now all of a sudden the mask comes off and you start to see who this person really is. And that's where the relationship really shifted. And that's where you saw the person who really was them at the very end of the relationship. And now you're seeing them in a new relationship in a completely different version, a happier version, smiling, madly in love, showing this person off, taking them on trips, doing all the things that, again, you had in the beginning of the relationship. So one thing that I want to start by saying and kind of go back for a second is who you saw in the beginning is not who they actually really were. And why did the shift happen? Why did they change? They changed for a multitude of reasons. They changed because possibly you were not a person now that was giving them what you gave in the beginning. So in the beginning of the relationship, you were love bombed. You were smothered with attention, smothered with gifts, smothered with I love yous, promises, you're my soulmate, all of that kind of stuff. And you fell really, really hard for it. And so because you fell hard for it, you put that person on a pedestal that was so, so high, probably even a pedestal that was above yourself. So because you do that, they adored you, they loved you, they kept feeding you and you kept feeding them. And so you have this very dysfunctional relationship of let me fill you up, let me fill you up. But here's the thing, with someone who's narcissistic, it's going to reach a point where what you're giving is still not enough. It was enough in the beginning, but you're not really the shiny new toy that you were when I first met you. Because no matter who the person is, no matter how much low self-esteem you have, no matter how codependent you are, at some point, I don't know how else to say this, but you're gonna grow a pair. And so when you grow a pair and you say, hey, I don't really like this, or I like you to do more of this, or you just start putting boundaries and standards on this person, they don't like that. And so now you're turning into a person that I don't want you to be. I want you to stay right here where you think I'm amazing and I get to do whatever I want and be who I want. And that's it. That's all I want from you. And so since that's not who you are, no matter how weak you may look back and think that you were not weak enough because there were some parts of you that were holding this person accountable and they didn't want to see that. So you weren't really the person that they wanted anymore. And so they discard you and they move on to another relationship. Or possibly you break up with them and you start to move on and they do as well. But now you see again what you saw in the beginning in this new relationship that they're now in. Now, the one thing about all narcissists is they are huge manipulators. They are so good at constructing stories that make them look like this, right? Look like the hero, look like the great guy, look like mom of the year. So they're very good at kind of conjolting the stories to fit the narrative that they want, right? And so since they are so good at that, they're essentially great gaslighters and manipulators. And if you are no longer in this relationship and you're seeing them in a new relationship and they're moving on and they appear to be happy because you have been gaslighted for so long, because you have been manipulated, and quite frankly, because your ego is bruised and you're unaware of that, your mind is going to start to construct stories. And these stories are going to say things like, I must have been the problem. What does that person have that I didn't have? Look, now they're actually becoming the person that I wanted them to be. And they're becoming this with that person. And I was with them for years and they never had the drive, or they never treated me this way, or they never went on trips with me, or whatever that looks like. They're now giving this person everything that you actually wanted. And one of the stories that will 100% take you down the rabbit hole is the story that says they have now met their soulmate and I still haven't found mine. So it's very easy to get into a place where your ego is bruised and you're completely self-loathing. And now it's woe is me. They're winning, so to speak, and I'm still not. I still haven't met my person, or I'm not happy yet, and they appear to be, and that's not fair because they hurt me, and they don't deserve that. So it's very easy to go down those roads, but here are the things that I really want you to remember, because what's happening now is you're getting a front row seat of this narcissist's ability to manipulate and gaslight. And so since you're in the front row, you know this person really well, you have the insight on what's actually really happening. Number one, a narcissist is not a genuine person. A narcissist is not someone that can have a deep connection with anyone. Their relationships are always going to be surface level. So the show that you're now witnessing and the story that your mind is constructing is a false story based on a false narrative. This is just a display so I can show the world that I am, quote, happy, but I don't really even know what happiness actually means, because in order to feel pure, genuine happiness, you have to have a connection with yourself. And a narcissist is the complete opposite of that. It is a person that has such brick walls up around their heart space that they can never actually go deep within themselves, let alone with another person. So you're just seeing a small opening into their life based on what you're seeing either in social media or stories that people are telling you. You actually don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And that's just the reality of the situation. So you can't let your mind, or you can't allow your mind to construct stories, or I should say, because your mind's going to do what it wants to do, you shouldn't allow yourself to feed the stories knowing that they're false. Number two, people that are that unhealthy and dysfunctional do not heal overnight. It's impossible. Even someone who does not have a personality disorder knows that it takes years to heal and to reprogram. And a new relationship, that person is not going to be the person that saves them and teaches them and heals them, and all of a sudden now they're completely different. It just don't happen like that. It's impossible for that to actually happen. Just like no one can save you, no one can save this person. Now, this doesn't mean that this person can never be happy, but what you want to do is understand what is their definition of happy. If their definition of happy is just having that surface level relationship where I have the house, I have the family, I have this, and like, look, I look good from the outside, but I don't have intimacy with myself or the other person, I don't have deep connections, I don't know how to be a father, I don't know how to be a mother, then what are you missing? Your happiness, what you define as happiness and what they define as happiness are completely two different things. So they can be happy actually, but their happiness doesn't look the same as what you would construct happiness to look like. And that's something that's very important to understand, because so many people will say to me, well, they can be happy 100%, but that definition of what happiness looks like for them is going to look different for you. It just is, because that's why you two are no longer together. So if that's the case, then what do you possibly have to either be jealous about or insecure about? Because remember, a person who is unhealthy, their happiness is very, very surface level. So essentially it's real fake happiness. And that's not something that you should look at and ever feel insecure about, jealous of, or mourn. Now, for the person that betrayed you, hurt you, and cannot admit their faults, cannot admit that they did something wrong, obviously they're not sincere about it because they have no empathy. Some narcissists can actually own it. Some can say, yeah, I did that and I shouldn't have done that and I'm sorry. But they're not really sorry. They're just admitting it probably because they got caught. But the person that got caught and still won't really own it, let alone have empathy to actually apologize and feel bad for what they actually did, two different things, but it's still under the umbrella of a person who's very dysfunctional and a person who is not going to heal and change overnight. Because in order to really have some deep empathy, most likely you're going to have some shame, you're going to have some guilt for what it is that you did. You'll be able to forgive yourself and work through it, but you can't even touch those topics until you at least have admitted what you did and sit in it for a second. And most narcissists don't want to sit in it. And a lot of times clients won't really understand that your ex will be happy temporarily because what they have is a shiny new toy. What they have is someone who's willing to put up with them. What they have is someone who admires them and puts them on the pedestal just like you did at one point in time. But like I said, at every point in time, no matter who the person is, they're going to want more from this narcissist. And at that point, the narcissist is not going to be able to give them anything. It doesn't mean they're going to get divorced. It doesn't mean that, their new partner is going to leave them or cheat on them or anything like that. They could stay married for 50 years. So it's not about whether they're in a relationship or out of a relationship and just single, but it does mean that if they stay in the relationship, is the relationship actually healthy? No. Remember, the highest compliment you can ever get is someone leaving you, is someone betraying you, is someone hurting you, because what they did is they just opened the window to leave your life, even though it's painful, and that's a beast in itself in order to heal. But they gave you a gift of being able to actually have the partner that you really deserve, rather than settling for someone who can never actually be who you want them to be. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did and you are interested in working with me, I always link all of my coaching options down below. We now have a new membership within my coaching practice where you guys are able to actually text me if that's something that you want to do, because I know a lot of people just really have some quick questions that they want to ask me. So please don't forget to check out the description box below for more insight or information on that. And I will see you next week.